The Galactic Council sat in a circle of floating crystal thrones. Each leader from the strongest alien empires was present. The sky above the chamber showed a hologram of the small blue planet called Earth. The Council had gathered to discuss the war against the invaders known as the Drozun, a brutal race that crushed planets like insects. Now they were headed toward the Council's outer colonies. Each species had sent soldiers, thousands. Some had sent war beasts, machines, fleets of gunships. Earth sent only 300. The room fell silent when Earth's ambassador stepped forward. He was calm, serious, and alone. A thin man wearing a black uniform. He looked too small, too soft. Only 300 soldiers. Asked the reptilian leader from Zalcor. Is that all your planet can offer? They're enough, the ambassador replied. Laughter filled the chamber. Loud, mocking laughter. Even the quiet races grinned. Humans must be good at dying. The insect queen hissed, clicking her sharp mandibles. You're sending your last few pets to be crushed. But the ambassador didn't smile. You asked for help, he said simply. We sent you what you need. A council guard whispered something into his superior's ear. A report had arrived. The human soldiers had landed on Korgan 5, one of the attacked border worlds. Everyone expected failure. The Drozun had over 100,000 troops there. And yet, something strange was happening. The live feeds from Korgan 5 were full of static. Patrol teams were disappearing, and the Drozun had stopped advancing. They're hiding, the ambassador said, watching the confused faces. Who is hiding? Asked the general. The Drozun, the ambassador replied. They saw our soldiers. On Korgan 5, the dust-covered plains were quiet. No birds, no wind, no sound. Just scorched ground and the smell of smoke. Then, movement. One human stepped through the smoke, dressed in dark armor. His helmet glowed red. His rifle was heavier than he was. He scanned the ground with sharp eyes. Not once did he speak. Behind him, more humans followed. Silent, focused, each step placed with purpose. They didn't run. They didn't shout. They simply moved forward like machines. A Drozun scout tried to sneak up behind them. One of the humans turned, raised a sidearm, and fired once. A clean shot. No hesitation. The scout fell before it could scream. Back in the council chamber, a new hologram appeared. Live footage. A Drozun commander was seen panting, blood on his armor. He spoke fast, desperate, shouting at his own leaders. They are not men, he cried. They do not stop. They do not rest. They do not fear pain. Who? Asked his general off-screen. The humans. Everyone watched in silence. They fight like ghosts, he shouted. One took out 30 of my best warriors alone. I shot him twice. He still came toward me. Then the screen went black. The ambassador gave a short nod. That was Sergeant Vega. He doesn't like being interrupted. The laughter was gone now. Instead, the council looked at each other in silence. Their eyes showed something new. Fear. They're just humans, one council member whispered. How can this be? The ambassador gave a small, tired smile. You don't understand. You thought numbers were strength. You thought bigger armies win wars. You forgot something. What? A general asked quietly. That Earth trains soldiers for the worst kind of war, he replied. The kind where you expect to die, but don't care if you do. On Korgan 5, the Drozun began to retreat. One of their warlords tried to organize a counterattack. His forces outnumbered the humans 100 to 1. But when they charged, they were cut down in silence. Human soldiers moved like shadows. They used old weapons, precise strikes, dirty tricks. A single human sniper took out an entire squad without being seen. A Drozun tank turned its cannon on a human alone in the field, but before it fired, a small device was thrown under its wheels. The explosion flipped the tank. The human soldier didn't flinch. He walked past the burning metal and reloaded calmly. The Drozhim leader sent one final message to the council. Withdraw the humans, or we will. The council was shocked. An enemy begging to retreat. The ambassador from Earth simply said, let them leave, or let them be hunted. For the first time, the strongest war species in the galaxy feared Earth. Not because of its size, not because of its weapons, but because of its people. The transport ship moved through space, silent and cold. Inside, the human soldiers sat in their armor, strapped to their drop pods. No one spoke, no one joked. These were not new recruits. They had dropped into war zones more times than they could count. The lights turned red. A voice came over the ship's speaker. Drop in 60 seconds. Zone. Sector 7. Korgan 5. High resistance. No backup. One soldier checked his gear. His name was Vega. Calm, steady. His armor was scratched from old battles. His helmet showed a red skull. He had killed more enemies than any general on the council. Another soldier sat across from him. Private Kell. Younger. Nervous. Do they really have monsters down there? Kell asked. Vega didn't look at him. We've all got monsters. Doesn't matter what they look like. The pods unlocked with a loud hiss. Then, launch. Each pod became a fireball as it dropped through the planet's atmosphere. The ground came fast. Korgan 5 had changed. What used to be a lush mining world was now dark, burning, covered in ash. Drozhim forces had left nothing alive. Buildings were bones. Skies were smoke. The pods hit, one after another. And from the smoke, the humans stepped out. A Drozhim scout watched from a cliff. His eyes narrowed. Just 300 humans. He laughed to himself. This would be easy. He sent a message to his unit. Enemy landing confirmed. Small force. No vehicles. Permission to attack. Granted, his commander replied. Crush them. The scout clicked off his communicator and raised his sniper rifle. He picked out a target. The young one. The scared one. Easy kill. But when he pulled the trigger, his screen went black. His rifle sparked. He looked down. His fingers were gone. He turned. Vega stood behind him, silent, blade in hand. How? The scout gasped. You looked at the wrong soldier, Vega said. He finished the scout without blinking. Kell's unit moved through the ruins. 10 soldiers. Quiet. Fast. Checking corners. Using hand signals. Then came the sound. A low growl. Not Drozhim. Something else. The team leader held up a fist. They froze. Kell heard a strange clicking noise. Then movement. Big movement. Something was coming fast. They aimed their weapons. A beast jumped out from the rubble. 12 feet tall, armored skin, 6 red eyes. Open fire, the leader shouted. Bullets ripped through the air. The creature shrieked and crashed to the ground. More of them appeared. 10, 20. The humans didn't back down. They stood their ground. Fought smart. Used the environment. Lured beasts into traps. One soldier climbed onto a monster's back and dropped a grenade into its neck. Kell watched, shocked. These people weren't normal. They were machines with hearts. Back at the council, alien commanders received the feed. Unknown life forms detected on Korgan 5, one said. We didn't know the Drozhim used beasts. They don't, another replied. They're waking something else up. Earth's ambassador stepped into the chamber again. You left that world to burn, he said. You let the Drozhim take it without a fight. Now the planet is bleeding. A general glared at him. Your soldiers should retreat. They won't, the ambassador said. Then they'll die. The ambassador nodded. Maybe, but they'll finish the job first. In the city center, Vega's squad reached the Drozhim's command zone, a fortified bunker. Hundreds of enemies guarded it. They didn't wait for orders. Vega pulled a pin, tossed a smoke bomb, and charged in. Shots fired in every direction. Humans moved through smoke like shadows. Vega took 3 hits but kept moving. He dropped 2 grenades into the bunker entrance and dove for cover. The blast shook the ground. Inside, Drozun officers panicked. They couldn't see. They couldn't hear. They only saw red dots through the smoke. The dots didn't miss. Later, when the smoke cleared, the human flag stood over the Drozun base. Only 40 humans were wounded. 0 dead. The rest were already moving to the next target. Kel sat down beside a burned wall, breathing hard. He looked at Vega. "Why aren't we retreating?" Vega checked his weapon, expression calm. "Because we're not here to survive," he said. Kel frowned. "Then why?" Vega looked at him. "We're here to win." Somewhere in deep space, the Drozun War Council received a report. Human soldiers had taken 5 zones in 1 day, with no ships, no tanks, no air support, just grit. The Drozun leader slammed his claw on the table. "They are few," he shouted. "Why are they winning?" A nervous officer replied, "Because they don't fight like us." Back in orbit, the Earth ambassador sent one short message to the Council. "Our soldiers do not need saving. They are the storm." The Drozun forces were angry now. They had lost 2 forward bases and over 1,000 warriors in just 3 days. Their commanders didn't understand how 300 humans were doing this. It made no sense. The humans had no tanks, no air support, no advanced weapons. But they kept winning. And worse, they kept coming. The Drozun prepared a trap. They picked a ruined city where they believed the humans would pass through next. Hidden troops waited under rubble. Long-range cannons were placed on rooftops. Beasts were locked in cages, ready to be unleashed. This time, they would crush the humans. They would show the galaxy that numbers still mattered. But the humans knew. They always knew. Sergeant Vega stood over a digital map with his team. It showed the layout of the city, the enemy positions, and the trap. He pointed at the northeast corner. "Weak spot here. Ammo dump. If we hit that, chain reaction." The others nodded. No one argued. No one questioned. They trusted him with their lives. Private Kel spoke up. "Won't we be surrounded?" Vega looked up. "We want to be." Kel swallowed hard. He still didn't understand how these soldiers thought. But he was learning. At dawn, the humans entered the city ruins. The Drozun watched them from hidden spots. Their commander grinned. "Wait, wait." He waited until the humans were in the center of the city. Now, the sky exploded with fire. Cannons fired from rooftops. Beasts were released from cages. Drozun troops swarmed from underground tunnels. But something was wrong. The humans didn't panic. They didn't run. They split into 5 groups and moved. Fast, clean, dangerous. Vega's team broke through a wall and climbed up the side of a destroyed building. They didn't go around. They went straight through. One soldier planted a small device on the wall. It beeped once, twice. Boom! A section of the roof collapsed, right on top of the cannon crew. The other team used smoke grenades to block the enemy's line of sight. Then they moved low, silent, like shadows between buildings. The beasts charged at one group of humans. But mines hidden in the dirt exploded as they stepped forward. The beasts screamed, broken and stunned. The humans finished them with clean shots. On the other side of the city, Kel's group reached the ammo dump Vega had pointed out earlier. It was guarded by 20 Drozun warriors. Kel hesitated. The leader of his group, a tall woman named Ryas, gave the signal. They moved in. The fight was brutal. Close combat. Knives, fists, bullets. One human was thrown against a wall but got back up and kept swinging. Kel saw a Drozun coming at him with a blade. Time slowed. He raised his rifle. His hands shook. Then he pulled the trigger. The alien dropped. His heart pounded in his ears. Rise planted the charge. Fall back. The explosion lit the sky, and just as Vega had said, the chain reaction began. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions spread from building to building. Ammunition, fuel, weapons, all caught fire. Flames reached the skies. The Drozun commander screamed in rage. His trap had failed. His city was burning. His warriors were falling back. Even the beasts refused to charge. Vega stood on top of a broken wall, watching the fire spread. One Drozun spotted him and charged. Vega let him come. Then, at the last second, he turned and struck with a blade straight to the chest. No wasted movement. No words. In orbit, the Galactic Council received the report. The entire Drozun trap was destroyed. Casualties. Human, 4 wounded. Drozun, 2,600 dead. 3 bases lost. 7 beasts destroyed. The council sat in silence. How are they doing this? One leader whispered. They were supposed to be weak. The Earth ambassador stood once again. You still don't get it, he said. You look at the number. 300. You think it means small. But these are not normal soldiers. Every one of them is trained to fight 100 enemies alone. A general replied, That's impossible. The ambassador shook his head. No, that's just Earth. On the surface, the surviving Drozun soldiers ran. They didn't regroup. They ran. Some even dropped their weapons. The humans didn't chase them. They let them go. Sergeant Vega turned to Kel. Good shot today. Kel blinked. It was the first time Vega had praised him. Thanks. I thought I'd freeze. You didn't, Vega said. That's what matters. Kel nodded. He wasn't like them. Not yet. But he was changing. A week later, the Drozun sent a message to the council. We demand to know what Earth has created. These are not normal men. These are monsters in human skin. The ambassador smiled when he saw it, then sent one sentence in reply. You wanted warriors. We sent wolves. The war was no longer the same. What started as an invasion by the Drozun had turned into something else. Something darker. They were no longer the hunters. Now, they were the hunted. The humans were spreading across Korgan 5 like ghosts. Fast, quiet, deadly. They hit supply routes, sabotaged weapon factories, burned communication hubs. Drozun commanders started vanishing from their posts. Patrols went out and never came back. The 300 humans were becoming a nightmare story among the Drozun ranks. They gave them a name. The Wolves. Sergeant Vega and his squad moved through a thick jungle valley. This area was once a research zone. Now it was wild and dangerous. The trees were tall, twisted, and the air was heavy with smoke. This is where they're hiding, Vega said, pointing to a dark hill on the map. A forward base. If we take it, the rest will fall. Private Kel wiped sweat from his face. They know we're coming. They will, Vega said. He raised his hand. Go silent. From here on, we're ghosts. Far away, inside the Drozun jungle base, Commander Grawl stood before a wall of screens. He was angry, paranoid. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Why haven't we crushed them yet? He shouted. A young officer stepped forward. They don't fight normal. They come at night. They plant bombs. They vanish. Grawl slammed his clawed hand against the table. No more hiding. We build traps. Fill the trees with watchers. Burn the jungle if we must. But the humans were already inside. At night, rain poured over the jungle like a waterfall. Thunder rumbled in the sky. The perfect cover. Vega's team crawled through mud, avoiding sensors. They moved like animals. Low, quiet, patient. They'd reached the outer wall. A small tower stood nearby with a guard on top. One quick shot from Rice brought him down without a sound. Kel placed a small device on the gate's power line. It buzzed once. The gate lights went out. In 3 minutes, they were inside the Drozun base. Inside, the humans split into 2 groups. Vega's team moved toward the command center. Rise's team went for the fuel tanks. Kel followed Vega. His hands were steady now. His heart no longer panicked. He had changed. They entered the main hallway. It was quiet. Too quiet. Vega raised his fist. They stopped. He pointed at the ceiling. Tripwires. A trap. Kel took out a small mirror, angled it around the corner, and saw the problem. 3 turrets aimed at the hallway. Vega smirked. They're learning. He tossed a smoke bomb and fired blindly at the sensors. Then dove left. The turrets fired, but missed. They used the distraction to move fast, getting closer, then planting explosives underneath each turret mount. Boom, boom, boom. The way was clear. In the fuel yard, Rise and her squad placed charges under every tank. They moved like machines. No talking, just signals. The rain covered their sounds. Suddenly, a Drozun squad spotted them. Alarm, one shouted. A loud siren echoed through the base. Rise shouted, now. One of her team fired a launcher into the side of a tank. Boom. Fire lit the sky. Back at the command center, Vega kicked in the door. The Drozun inside turned, shocked, but it was too late. His team moved fast. One by one, the enemy fell. Vega found Commander Grawl in the back room, trying to escape through a hatch. He grabbed him by the collar and threw him to the ground. You, Grawl hissed. You're not men. You're shadows. Vega crouched beside him. You burned cities. You crushed colonies. You laughed at us. Growl's eyes narrowed. What are you? Vega stood up. We're what comes after your last mistake. They left the base in flames. Explosions shook the ground behind them. Rain turned the smoke into fog. By morning, the jungle base was gone. Nothing left. Not even the bodies. Up in orbit, the Galactic Council watched the satellite feed. That was their biggest forward base, said one general. It's gone. And the humans? Another asked. Not a single death. The Earth ambassador entered the room, holding a datapad. He placed it on the table. It showed the words. Phase 2 complete. 17 targets destroyed. Enemy leadership broken. The insect queen from the Velkna leaned forward. What are they planning now? The ambassador smiled coldly. We let them off the leash. Now they hunt. Back on the planet, the humans gathered in a quiet clearing. Only the sound of jungle birds filled the air. Private Kel sat beside a fire, cleaning his weapon. You think they'll send more of us? He asked Vega. Vega shook his head. No, they don't need to. Why not? Vega looked at the stars. Because soon, the Drozun will beg for us to leave. The Drozun warlords gathered in a dark underground hall. Their claws clicked on the floor as they argued, shouted, and roared. Their proud army was broken. Their bases were falling like old bricks. Their beasts were dying before they could even strike. They are only 300, one commander yelled. We had armies, said another. Thousands. What happened? No one answered. No one could. But deep down, they all knew the truth. For the first time in their lives, they were afraid. Above the surface of Korgan 5, thunder rolled across the sky. Smoke rose from every direction. Cities that once belonged to the Drozun were now nothing but ruins. Their banners were torn. Their war songs had stopped. And the humans were still moving. Sergeant Vega stood at the top of a ruined tower, looking down at a Drozun city called Zorka, one of the last strongholds on the planet. He turned to his team. This is the last gate before their capital. Zorka, the Drozun stronghold, stood like a beast of metal and stone. Tall towers, thick walls, glowing energy shields. It was meant to be untouchable, a place where the Drozun could regroup, plan, and finally crush the humans. But now fear had crawled inside those strong walls. Soldiers stood at their posts with shaking hands. Officers shouted louder than needed. Beasts locked in cages growled nonstop. Something was wrong, and they all felt it. The humans were coming. Sergeant Vega crouched in the dark brush outside the city. His eyes were locked on a glowing power line running toward the main gate. Around him, his team waited in silence. Private Kell whispered, "This place is huge. Can we really take it?" Vega didn't blink. "We won't take it. We'll make them believe it." He pointed to the city's weak points: power stations, water tanks, backup ammo dumps. One soldier asked, "That'll only cause panic, not destruction." Vega gave a small smile. "Panic is step one." That night, just before moonrise, the first blast hit the outer power station. Lights flickered in the city. At first, the Drozun thought it was a system glitch. But then the water pumps failed. The shield walls dropped for exactly 12 seconds, long enough for a dozen humans to slip inside. Inside Zorka, chaos began. Explosions rang out in different districts. Fires burned. Smoke spread. Each blast was fast, clean, and targeted. Communications jammed. Orders stopped. And still, they couldn't find the humans. They moved like shadows. Shot once. Moved twice. The Drozun fired into the darkness. But always too late. Commander Kratak slammed his fist into a console. "Where are they? How do they keep vanishing?" A scout burst into the room. "Sir, they're not attacking one area. They're everywhere." Kratak's eyes widened. He had been trained for battle. He had fought in space, in jungles, in frozen moons. But this was a hunt, and they were the prey. Vega's team reached the central control tower. The elevator was guarded by 10 Drozun warriors. Too many for a quiet kill. Vega turned to Reyes and nodded. She took out a strange device, something Earth soldiers called a flash cannon. One click. A blinding pulse of white light hit the guards. They screamed, dropped their weapons, and fell to the ground. The humans didn't stop. They stormed in, one after another. Fast, precise, no mercy. Meanwhile, Kell and 2 others reached the underground bunker. Inside were maps, plans, and leadership logs. He opened a panel and placed a small black box on the floor. "Vega, it's set," he whispered into the comms. "Copy that," Vega replied. "Pull back. We end this soon." As dawn approached, the humans gathered just outside the city center. The fires they started were spreading. The Drozun were retreating, confused, leaderless. Vega stood tall, covered in dirt and ash. He activated his comlink, but not to his team. He opened a channel to the entire city, to the Drozun. His voice echoed through every speaker, every helmet, every base terminal. "This is Sergeant Vega of Earth's 7th Ghost Division. You thought you were powerful. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. You laughed at our numbers, but now you understand. It was never about numbers. It was about resolve, about rage, about the fire you lit in our hearts. You took our colonies, burned our homes, killed our people. This was your last stronghold. Now, it's just ash." He nodded at Kell. Kell hit the trigger. Boom. The bunker exploded. A chain of detonations followed. Ammo depots, shield generators, fuel cells, one after another. Zorka crumbled from the inside. The mighty stronghold collapsed. Flames rose like towers. Metal groaned. The ground shook. And then, silence. The few surviving Drozun fled into the forests. They didn't regroup. They didn't turn to fight. They just ran. For the first time in their proud warrior race's history, they had been broken. High above the planet, in the Galactic Council chamber, Silence filled the room. Every species, every empire, watched the live feed of Zorka's fall. Some stared in fear, some in awe. One ambassador finally whispered, "Is this what humanity is?" The Earth ambassador turned slowly. "No," he said, "this is what happens when you make us angry." Back on Korgan 5, Vega stood at the edge of the ruins. The sky was red with fire. Private Kell stood beside him, helmet in hand. "We really did it," Kell said softly. Vega nodded. One city left. The capital? Vega looked toward the horizon, where smoke clouds covered the sun. "No," he said. "The reckoning." Private Kell looked down at the city's defenses. Hundreds of enemy troops, artillery, towers, energy shields. "It's a fortress," he said. "Then we break it," Vega replied. That night, a strange sound echoed across Zorka. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a roar. It was a message, broadcast in every Drozun language. The capital of the Drozun Empire stood tall on the mountain cliffs of Varnuk Prime. Black towers touched the clouds. The city stretched across 5 ridges, covered in cannons, shields, and beast legions. It was the last proud symbol of Drozun power. But that power was fading. Inside the great council hall, Drozun leaders gathered for one final meeting. Their armor was dented. Their eyes were full of fear. Messages from across the stars brought only bad news. Another base gone. Another fleet lost. More humans attacking in places they couldn't see. The room was quiet, until one of them finally asked, "Is this the end?" No one answered. Far below the cliffs, hidden inside a dead canyon, the last human strike team prepared for war. Sergeant Vega stared at a hologram of the capital city. "We end it here," he said. Private Kell checked his gear. "They'll throw everything they have at us." "They already did," Vega replied. "And they lost." A young soldier asked, "How do we hit a city that big? Just 300 of us." Vega turned to his team. "We don't hit the city. We hit their will." At sunrise, the Drozun city woke to fire. The first explosions ripped through their skyports. Bombers were grounded. Transports destroyed. Fuel towers lit up like suns. Next came the blackouts. Power stations fried by EMP bombs. Whole sectors went dark. Then, the fear began. Messages played on every screen. You laughed at the tiny army. You mocked the humans. Now, you answer to us. The humans didn't attack like normal armies. They came from the sky in stealth dropships, from tunnels beneath the earth, from the smoke, from the shadows. They planted bombs on bridges, cut off food supply chains, took out leaders with single, silent shots. The Drozun couldn't fight back. Their weapons were too slow, their minds too old, their pride too heavy. Commander Drask, the last general of the Drozun High Army, stood on the edge of his war balcony. Below him, his great capital burned. His soldiers fled. His towers fell. He looked up and saw 3 human dropships descending from the clouds. He had one last message sent. "Why are you doing this? We surrendered. We retreat. What more do you want?" Inside the lead ship, Vega received the message. He stared at the screen for a moment, then sent his reply. "We wanted peace. You gave us war. Now, we give it back." The humans didn't destroy the city completely. They left the hospitals. They left the schools. But they tore down every monument, every throne, every statue that celebrated the Drozun Empire. They made sure the Drozun people remembered one thing, that their strongest warriors were once humbled by 300 human soldiers. 2 days later, the Galactic Council declared the Drozun war machine dissolved. Earth's ambassador stepped onto the floor. He didn't shout. He didn't brag. He simply said, "We never wanted to fight, but we will never run. We are not the biggest empire. We are not the oldest race. But when pushed, We do not break. We endure. We resist. And when it is over, we are the ones still standing. Back on Varnock Prime, in the ruins of the Drozum capital, the last of the human soldiers gathered. Vega stood among them, helmet in hand, looking at the sunrise. Private Kell stood beside him. "It's over," Kell said. "No," Vega replied softly. "It's just beginning." Kell looked confused. "Beginning?" Vega turned to him. "They'll talk about this war for centuries. They'll warn their children not to cross Earth. The stars will remember who we are." He smiled. Now they'd finally understand. Kell nodded. They finally understood fear. Months passed since the fall of the Drozum capital. Their empire, once feared across 100 systems, was now silent. Its banners were gone. Its warships were dust. Most of its leaders had either fled, surrendered, or disappeared. But one thing remained. A story. A story of a tiny army, of just 300 human soldiers, who broke the back of giants. On a quiet moon near the edges of explored space, a new monument stood. It wasn't tall. It wasn't golden. It was simple, a steel wall engraved with the names of the 300 soldiers who fought on Korgan 5 and Varnock Prime. Children from many worlds came to read the names. Some touched the wall with wonder. Some saluted in silence. Some whispered to each other. These were the ones who changed the galaxy. Sergeant Vega sat alone near the edge of the field, watching the stars. His uniform was clean, his hair a little longer, his rifle, finally, at rest beside him. Private Kell walked over, holding 2 cups of hot synth tea. "I still can't believe it's over," Kell said, handing Vega a cup. Vega nodded. "Feels strange, doesn't it? After all the fire, all the fear, it's just quiet now." Kell took a seat beside him. "Do you ever wonder," he asked, "why they really feared us?" Vega smiled without looking away from the stars. "They thought we were soft, weak, emotional." He turned to Kell. "But they didn't understand that emotion is our fire. Pain is our fuel. And when we love something, we'll fight through anything to protect it." Kell nodded. They didn't understand that, until it was too late. In a far-off chamber deep in the Galactic Council headquarters, an emergency meeting was called. A new species, advanced, aggressive, fast, had been spotted beyond the Orion reach. Their ships were strange, their weapons unknown. Several border colonies had already gone dark. Panic filled the room. "Do we surrender?" one asked. "Do we hide?" Another said. A voice from the corner spoke calmly. "No," said Earth's ambassador, walking into the light. "We do what we've always done." The others turned to him. "What is that?" a young diplomat asked. He smiled. "We send a message." A black transmission went out that very night. Across dozens of star systems, the same words were broadcast. "We are humanity. We are not the strongest, not the fastest. But if you strike us, if you harm even one of our own, we will find you, and you will face consequences." Back on Earth, in a classroom filled with young cadets, a teacher played a short video clip. It showed smoke, fire, marching boots, explosions in the sky, and then the faces of human soldiers, dirty and tired, but unbroken. One cadet raised her hand. "Sir, is that the Drozum War?" The teacher nodded. "Yes, the war that changed everything." Another asked, "Why were they so afraid of us?" The teacher smiled. "Because they finally saw what humans become when we're backed into a corner." Somewhere deep in uncharted space, a group of alien scouts found the ruins of a Drozum city. They scanned the buildings. Burned, blasted, empty. In the center of the square stood a strange object, a metal sign, untouched by time or war. The words were written in many languages, but the final line read, "Never mistake kindness for weakness. We tried to warn you. The alien scouts returned to their ship. One of them whispered, "Who did this?" The captain replied with a single word, "Humans." Back on the quiet moon, the monument wall shone under starlight. Sergeant Vega stood alone, reading the names one last time. He touched one of them gently. "Rest now," he whispered. "They know who we are." Behind him, a child approached. "Are you one of them?" the child asked. Vega nodded once. The child looked up at the stars. "Will it happen again?" Vega looked at the sky too. "I hope not," he said. "But if it does..." He picked up his old rifle and slung it over his back. "They'll know what's coming."